The police dog froze in front of the suitcase. When the officers opened it and saw what was inside, they froze. Officer Mike Reynolds felt the weight of the day in his shoulders as he patrolled Terminal C of Logan International Airport with his partner, a 5-year-old Belgian Malinois named Max. The morning rush had subsided, giving way to the steady stream of midday travelers, business people with rolling briefcases, families corralling excited children, college students with oversized backpacks. Mike's eyes scanned the crowd methodically, a habit formed over his 12 years with the transportation police. Max walked beside him with the focused intensity that had made him one of the department's most valued K-9 officers. His honey brown eyes missed nothing, his black masked face occasionally turning to track a passing scent before returning to his vigilant forward gaze. The dog's muscular frame moved with precision, his body language communicating confidence and purpose. "Another quiet day," Mike said under his breath, reaching down to give Max a quick pat. Max responded with a subtle wag of his tail, but never broke his professional demeanor. They had been partners for 3 years, ever since Max had graduated from the intensive narcotics and explosives detection program. Their bond had grown beyond the workplace. Max lived with Mike, his wife Laura, and their 10-year-old daughter Emma, who had appointed herself Max's unofficial caretaker at home. The distinction between working dog and family pet was one that Max navigated with remarkable intelligence. At home, he was playful and affectionate. On duty, he was the consummate professional. Their route took them past the security checkpoint, where TSA agents processed a steady line of passengers. Mike nodded to the supervisor, a veteran named Garcia who had worked at Logan nearly as long as he had. "How's it going, Jerry?" Mike asked, pausing briefly. "Same old," Garcia replied, his eyes never leaving the X-ray monitor, "though we've got some weather moving in from the west. Might get busy if they start delaying flights." Mike glanced out the massive windows that lined the terminal. The Boston skyline was still clearly visible, but dark clouds were gathering on the horizon. He made a mental note to text Laura that he might be home late. "Hey, your boy's got something," Garcia said suddenly. Mike turned to see Max's demeanor had changed. The dog's body had stiffened, his nose working rapidly as he tested the air. Years of partnership had taught Mike to read these subtle signals. Max had detected something. "What is it, boy?" Mike asked quietly, his hand moving instinctively to the lead. Max turned his head, tracking an invisible thread through the air. His training was impeccable. No barking, no lunging, just a calm, determined focus as he began to move with purpose. Mike followed, allowing Max to lead while maintaining the appearance of a routine patrol. This was standard procedure, no need to cause alarm unless necessary. The dog moved deliberately toward the seating area near Gate C-14, where passengers waited for a flight to Chicago. Max weaved through the chairs, his nose occasionally dropping to the floor before rising again to test the air. Then he stopped abruptly beside a middle-aged man in a gray business suit. The man was typing on a laptop, a black rolling carry-on bag beside him. He seemed entirely ordinary. Neatly trimmed salt and pepper hair, wire-rimmed glasses, a wedding ring on his left hand. He didn't look up immediately, absorbed in whatever was on his screen. Max sat down directly beside the black bag, his eyes fixed on Mike. This was his alert position, the signal that he had found what he was trained to detect. Mike approached casually. "Excuse me, sir," he said, his voice pleasant but authoritative. "I'm Officer Reynolds with the Transportation Police. May I speak with you for a moment?" The man looked up, surprise registering on his face as he noticed the uniformed officer and the focused dog beside his bag. "Of course," he said, closing his laptop. "Is there a problem?" "Just a routine check, sir. My K-9 partner has shown interest in your bag. Would you mind if we take a look?" The man glanced at his watch, then at the departure board. "My flight board's in 20 minutes. "This won't take long," Mike assured him. Your name, sir? Robert Donovan, the man replied, producing a driver's license from his wallet. I'm an accountant, heading to Chicago for a conference. Mike radioed for backup, standard procedure when conducting a search. Within minutes, Officer Patel arrived to assist. Mr. Donovan, we're going to move to a more private area for this inspection, Mike explained. Please bring your belongings and come with us. Donovan gathered his laptop and briefcase while Mike took control of the rolling bag. Max remained alert, his eyes never leaving the bag as they walked to a small security room just off the main concourse. Inside the room, Mike placed the bag on a table. Mr. Donovan, are you aware of the contents of this bag? Of course, Donovan replied, a hint of annoyance creeping into his voice. It's my luggage, clothes, toiletries, presentation materials. Are you carrying any prohibited items? Weapons, explosives, narcotics? Absolutely not, Donovan said firmly. Do I have your permission to search this bag? Donovan hesitated for just a moment. Yes, fine, but please be careful with my things, and I really can't miss this flight. Mike nodded and turned to Max. Search, he commanded quietly. Max approached the bag, his nose working methodically along the seams and zippers. He circled it once, then sat down again, staring at the bag and then at Mike. The alert was definitive. I'm going to open the bag now, Mr. Donovan, Mike said, pulling on latex gloves. He unzipped the main compartment, revealing neatly folded clothes, a toiletry kit, and several manila folders, presumably containing the presentation materials Donovan had mentioned. Mike began a systematic search, careful not to disturb the contents more than necessary. Max remained focused, occasionally sniffing at the bag but maintaining his disciplined posture. Officer Patel stood by the door, observing both the search and Donovan, who was checking his watch with increasing frequency. Officer, I understand you're doing your job, but this is ridiculous, Donovan said. I've never had any issues before. Just a few more minutes, sir, Mike replied, continuing his methodical search. He removed the clothing items one by one, checked the toiletry kit, and examined the folders, finding nothing suspicious. He was beginning to wonder if Max had made a rare mistake when his fingers felt something unusual in the lining of the bag. The fabric seemed thicker in one section with a slight crinkle when pressed. Mike examined it more closely and found a nearly invisible seam, a hidden compartment sewn into the lining. Mr. Donovan, are you aware of this compartment in your bag? Mike asked, his tone still professional but noticeably cooler. Donovan's expression changed subtly. What compartment? That's just how the bag is made. Mike carefully opened the hidden seam, revealing a thin package wrapped in plastic. Max's excitement grew visibly, though his training kept him from making any sudden movements. Patel, watch Mr. Donovan, Mike said quietly as he extracted the package. It was approximately the size of a paperback book sealed in multiple layers of plastic wrap. Through the wrapping, Mike could see white powder. Mr. Donovan, can you explain this? Mike asked, though he already knew the answer. Donovan's composure cracked. That's not mine, he said quickly. I don't know how that got there. Someone must have planted it. Mike didn't respond to the denial. Instead, he reached for his radio. Dispatch, this is Officer Reynolds. I need narcotics at Gate C14 security room. Possible controlled substance discovered during a K-9 alert. One subject detained. As Mike secured the evidence and read Donovan his rights, he felt Max press against his leg, a small gesture of partnership that would have gone unnoticed by anyone else. Mike reached down and gave the dog a quick pat on the head. Good boy, he whispered. What neither Mike nor Max could know was that this routine detection was about to lead them down a path that would shake the foundations of their city and test the limits of their partnership in ways they could never have imagined. Within hours, what had begun as a routine airport patrol had morphed into something much larger. The white powder in Donovan's bag, nearly 2 kilograms of pharmaceutical-grade fentanyl, had a street value of over $3 million. Even more concerning to the authorities was the sophisticated concealment method. This wasn't the work of an amateur. Mike sat in the station's conference room, reviewing the preliminary report, while Max rested at his feet. The dog had earned his reward, a special rubber toy that he occasionally nudged with his nose, content but still alert to his handler's mood. Captain Rivera entered, carrying a stack of files. A 20-year veteran with a reputation for running a tight ship, Rivera had been pushing for expanded canine patrols at transportation hubs for years. Today's bust validated that initiative. "Good work today, Reynolds," Rivera said, taking a seat across from Mike. "Narcotics is still processing everything, but they wanted me to pass along their congratulations. This is a significant seizure." "Thank you, sir," Mike replied. "But the credit goes to Max. I almost missed the hidden compartment." Rivera nodded at the Belgian Malinois, who perked up at the sound of his name. "He's one of our best. Which is why I wanted to talk to you before you head home." The captain opened one of the files and slid a photograph across the table. It showed Robert Donovan entering the airport, pulling his now infamous black bag. Donovan isn't talking much, but what little we've gotten suggests he's just a mule. He claims someone paid him $5,000 to transport the bag to Chicago and hand it off to an unnamed contact at his hotel. "Do you believe him?" Mike asked, studying the photograph. "Partly. His background check shows financial troubles, second mortgage, credit card debt, a kid in college. He might have been desperate enough to take the risk. But there's more." Rivera placed another photo on the table. This one showed a tall man with sharp features and dark hair, speaking with Donovan in what appeared to be the airport parking garage. "This was taken by security cameras 90 minutes before you intercepted Donovan. We believe this man gave him the bag. We've run facial recognition, but no hits yet. Whoever he is, he knows how to stay off the grid." Mike leaned forward. "So we're looking at an organized operation." "That's the working theory. And it gets more interesting." Rivera pulled out another file. "In the past 6 months, there have been 3 other fentanyl seizures at major airports along the East Coast, JFK, Atlanta, and Miami. All involved similarly concealed shipments, all carried by individuals with no prior criminal records. They're using clean couriers," Mike observed. "People who won't trigger suspensions." "Exactly. And in each case, the courier was supposed to deliver the package to someone at their destination. We never caught any of those someones." Max shifted position, sensing the change in his handler's energy. Mike absently scratched behind the dog's ears as he processed the information. "You think these cases are connected?" Rivera nodded. "DEA does. They've been tracking this pattern for months. Your interception today is the first real break they've had." Mike sensed where this was heading. "Captain, what exactly are you asking?" Rivera closed the files and leaned back. "DEA wants to set up a controlled delivery. They want Donovan to go to Chicago as planned and meet his contact. With proper surveillance, we might be able to identify the next link in the chain." "And where do Max and I fit in?" "They want you both on the team. You'd fly to Chicago tonight, work with the local field office and their K9 units. Max's detection skills could be crucial if they need to make additional identifications." Mike frowned. "Tonight? I'm supposed to be off duty tomorrow. Emma has a soccer tournament." "I know, and I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. This operation could help us dismantle a major trafficking network. The decision is yours, but I need to know now if you're in." Mike looked down at Max, who gazed back with unwavering trust. Their partnership had always been built on mutual reliance. Where Mike went, Max followed, and vice versa. They were a team in every sense of the word. "Let me call Laura," Mike said finally. "If she can handle things at home, we're in." The call to his wife was brief but loaded with unspoken concerns. Laura Reynolds had been a police officer's wife for over a decade and understood the demands of the job. Still, disappointment tinged her voice when Mike explained he would miss Emma's tournament. "She'll understand," Laura said, though they both knew their daughter would be crushed. "Just be careful, okay? Both of you." "Always," Mike promised. "Give Emma a big hug for me. Tell her Max and I will make it up to her when we get back." After hanging up, Mike turned to Captain Rivera. "We're in. What's the plan?" The next few hours passed in a blur of briefings and preparations. Mike learned that the DEA had convinced Donovan to cooperate in exchange for consideration during prosecution. The accountant would proceed to Chicago as planned, check into his hotel, and wait for his contact to reach out. Meanwhile, a joint task force of DEA agents and Chicago PD would maintain surveillance, ready to move when the handoff occurred. By 8 p.m., Mike and Max were boarding a flight to Chicago, accompanied by DEA agent Sarah Chen, the operations lead coordinator. They were traveling as civilians, Mike in jeans and a sweater, his badge and service weapon carefully concealed, Max wearing a therapy dog vest rather than his police K9 harness. "The vest is a good cover," Chen commented as they settled into their seats. In her early 30s, with an intense focus that matched her reputation as one of the agency's rising stars, Chen had been tracking this fentanyl network for over a year. People just see a friendly service dog, not a highly trained detection animal. Max lay at their feet in the bulkhead row, seemingly content with his temporary disguise. Unlike some working dogs who struggled to transition between roles, Max adapted seamlessly to whatever the situation required. "He doesn't mind," Mike replied. "Actually, he gets more attention this way. People can't resist therapy dogs." As if on cue, a flight attendant stopped to admire Max. "What a beautiful dog. Is it okay to pet him?" Mike nodded. "Go ahead. He's very friendly." The flight attendant scratched Max behind the ears, earning a gentle tail wag. "What's his name?" "Max," Mike replied, maintaining their cover story. "He helps with my anxiety." After the flight attendant moved on, Chen leaned closer. "Donovan is already in Chicago. His flight landed an hour ago. Our team has him under surveillance at the Palmer House Hotel. So far, no contact from the recipient." "What's your read on Donovan?" Mike asked. "Do you think he'll stick to the script?" Chen's expression was grim. "He's terrified, which works in our favor, but he's also an amateur trying to play in a professional league. If he makes one wrong move, this whole operation could fall apart." The flight took off, rising above the storm clouds that had been threatening Boston all day. Mike gazed out the window, watching the city lights disappear beneath them. Beside him, Agent Chen reviewed case files on her tablet. At his feet, Max dozed lightly, conserving energy for whatever challenges lay ahead. Mike couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. In 12 years of law enforcement, he had participated in numerous operations, but something about this one felt different. Perhaps it was the speed with which everything had come together, or the high stakes involved, or simply the regret of missing Emma's tournament. "We land in about an hour," Chen said, breaking into his thoughts. "There's a briefing scheduled at the field office at 11 p.m. The Chicago K9 unit will be there too. I understand they're quite impressed with Max's record." Mike nodded, forcing himself to focus on the task at hand. He'll live up to his reputation. As the plane began its descent into Chicago, Mike felt Max stir. The dog looked up at him, brown eyes attentive and ready. Whatever awaited them in Chicago, they would face it together, as they always had. The Chicago DEA field office hummed with activity despite the late hour. Maps and surveillance photos covered the walls of the main conference room, where a team of agents and officers gathered around a large table. Mike sat with Max at his side, listening as Agent Chen laid out the operation details. Robert Donovan checked into the Palmer house at 9:47 p.m., Chen explained, pointing to a live surveillance feed on one of the monitors. He's in room 712. According to his statement, his contact will reach out sometime tomorrow morning with instructions for the handoff. Chicago K-9 Unit Lieutenant Diane Vasquez leaned forward. "And we're confident Donovan will stick to the script?" "As confident as we can be," Chen replied. "He's facing a minimum of 10 years if he doesn't cooperate. He has a strong incentive to play his part." Vasquez nodded, then turned her attention to Mike and Max. "Officer Reynolds, I've heard good things about your partner. We've got 3 K-9 teams standing by, but given Max's direct experience with the package, his nose could be our best asset." "He won't let us down," Mike assured her, feeling a small surge of pride. Max's reputation had preceded them, it seemed. DEA Assistant Director Marcus Wright, a veteran agent with salt and pepper hair, and the weathered look of someone who'd seen too much in his 30 years of service, took over the briefing. "Our primary goal is to identify the recipient of the package and, if possible, track them to their next destination. We believe this individual is a mid-level operative in what we're calling the Halcyon Network." He gestured to another agent, who pulled up a complex diagram on the main screen. "Based on our intelligence, Halcyon operates along the entire eastern seaboard, using professional couriers like Donovan to move product through commercial transportation hubs. What makes them unique is their corporate structure. They operate like a business, complete with quality control, distribution channels, and even performance reviews." "You're kidding," Mike said. "I wish I were," Wright replied grimly. "We've intercepted communications suggesting they actually provide bonuses for couriers who make successful deliveries on time. It's disturbingly professional." Chen pointed to several nodes on the diagram. "We've identified what we believe are 5 key transfer points: Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Atlanta, and Miami. Chicago appears to be a new expansion. What we don't have is names or faces for anyone above street level." "Until today," Wright added. "The man who gave Donovan the bag is the first visual confirmation we have of someone in a coordination role. If we can identify Donovan's contact tomorrow, we'll have our second." The briefing continued for another hour, covering everything from communication protocols to emergency extraction plans. 2 agents would pose as hotel staff, monitoring the hallway outside Donovan's room. Surveillance teams would be positioned in the lobby, restaurant, and adjacent streets. Mike and Max would remain mobile, ready to deploy wherever needed. As the meeting wrapped up, Lieutenant Vasquez approached Mike. "You and your partner should get some rest. We've arranged accommodations at a hotel 2 blocks from the Palmer house. One of my officers will show you there." Mike thanked her and followed a young officer named Rodriguez to a waiting car. Max trotted alongside, still wearing his therapy dog vest. "That's quite a dog you've got," Rodriguez commented as they drove through Chicago's downtown. "Lieutenant Vasquez says he's one of the best detection animals she's seen in 20 years. Mike smiled. "He's special, all right. Smartest partner I've ever had." The hotel was a modest chain establishment, chosen for its proximity to the operation rather than its amenities. Mike's room was on the 3rd floor, with a view of the Palmer house a few blocks away. After Rodriguez left, Mike removed Max's therapy vest, giving the dog a chance to relax. "Well, buddy, we're a long way from home," Mike said, scratching Max behind the ears. "Let's try to get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be busy." Max circled the room once, inspecting every corner before settling on the rug beside the bed. His routine never changed, whether at home or on assignment, always vigilant, always thorough. Mike checked his phone and found a text from Laura. "Emma scored 2 goals today. She wishes you were there. Stay safe." Attached was a photo of their daughter in her soccer uniform, grinning despite the mud on her face. Mike felt a pang of regret, followed by a renewed sense of purpose. Every dangerous substance they took off the streets made the world safer for Emma and kids like her. Sleep came fitfully, interrupted by the unfamiliar sounds of the hotel and the weight of the operation ahead. When Mike's alarm went off at 5:30 a.m., he found Max already awake and alert, sitting by the door as if sensing the importance of the day. After a quick shower and a grab-and-go breakfast from the hotel lobby, Mike and Max reported to the mobile command center, a nondescript van parked a block from the Palmer house. Inside, Agent Chen was already reviewing overnight reports with Lieutenant Vasquez. "Any movement from Donovan?" Mike asked. "He ordered room service last night, then stayed put," Chen replied. "According to hotel surveillance, he's following our instructions to the letter so far." "Any sign of our target?" "Nothing yet." Chen handed him a communications earpiece. "We expect contact will come by phone. Donovan's room is bugged and we've got a tap on his cell. The moment anything happens, you'll hear it." Mike inserted the earpiece and checked his concealed sidearm. Max sat patiently at his feet, waiting for his work harness. Mike had brought both the therapy dog vest and Max's official K9 unit harness, planning to switch between them as needed. "For now, let's keep him in therapy mode," Chen suggested. "You'll be less conspicuous walking through the hotel lobby with a service dog than a police K9. Mike fitted Max with the therapy vest, whispering the command that signaled they were working undercover. Max's demeanor shifted subtly, still alert, but with a softer, more approachable appearance. "Your position will be the hotel cafe," Vasquez explained, showing him a floor plan. "It gives you a clear view of the elevators and the main entrance. If Donovan leaves his room or receives a visitor, you'll be the first to know." Mike nodded, checking his watch. "I'll head over now. Morning coffee rush should provide good cover." The Palmer House was one of Chicago's grand historic hotels, its lobby adorned with ornate frescoes and marble columns. Mike chose a table in the cafe that offered both visibility and discretion, ordering coffee while Max settled at his feet. To casual observers, he was just another business traveler accompanied by his therapy dog. For the next 2 hours, Mike maintained his position, nursing his coffee and pretending to work on a laptop provided by the DEA. The earpiece remained silent except for routine check-ins from the surveillance team. Max dozed lightly but remained responsive to the slightest change in his handler's posture. At 9:17 a.m., the earpiece crackled to life. "Heads up, everyone," came Chen's voice. "Donovan just received a text message." Mike tensed, his hand automatically dropping to Max's head. Message reads, "Check out and bring package to Navy Pier. Food court, South End, 11 a.m. Come alone." Surveillance confirms the message came from a burner phone. Lieutenant Vasquez's voice followed. "All units adjust to Plan B. Target has chosen a public location with multiple exit points." "Reynolds," Chen added, "get to the van. We need to prep both you and Max for the new scenario." Mike left money for his coffee and walked briskly toward the exit, Max at his heel. The operation had just become significantly more complicated. Navy Pier was one of Chicago's busiest tourist attractions, crowded, sprawling, and difficult to secure. As he stepped outside, Mike glanced up at the 7th floor of the hotel, where Donovan was presumably preparing for checkout. The accountant was about to walk into a dangerous situation with a $3 million package of fentanyl. Whether his courage would hold remained to be seen. What Mike couldn't know was that they were all walking into something far more complex than a simple drug handoff, a web of deception where nothing and no one was quite what they seemed. Navy Pier stretched into Lake Michigan like a concrete peninsula, bustling with tourists despite the overcast sky. Food vendors, souvenir shops, and carnival attractions created a cacophony of sights and sounds, ideal for blending in, terrible for surveillance. The food court at the south end was particularly crowded, with dozens of tables filled with families and tour groups. Mike sat at a table near the periphery. angled to observe the main entrance. Max lay beneath the table, still wearing his therapy dog vest, but now equipped with a specialized collar containing a miniature camera and GPS tracker. Agent Chen sat several tables away, disguised as a tourist with a guidebook and a large shopping bag. Throughout the area, DEA agents and Chicago police officers maintained positions, all connected through encrypted communications. "Donovan is approaching the south entrance," came Lieutenant Vasquez's voice through Mike's earpiece. "He's carrying a black messenger bag. Looks nervous but moving steadily." Mike casually adjusted his position to get a better view. Moments later, Donovan appeared, dressed casually in jeans and a light jacket, the messenger bag slung across his body. His eyes darted around the food court, searching for his contact. "Target is scanning the area," Mike murmured into his concealed microphone. "No sign of recognition yet." Donovan purchased a coffee from one of the vendors and took a seat at an empty table near the center of the food court. He placed the messenger bag on the chair beside him, one hand remaining protectively near it. "He's following protocol," Chen's voice noted, making himself visible but not drawing attention. Mike kept his expression neutral, occasionally glancing at his phone as if checking messages. Max remained perfectly still beneath the table, his training evident in his disciplined patience. For 15 minutes, nothing happened. Donovan sipped his coffee, checked his watch, and continued to survey his surroundings. Then Max's ears twitched forward, his body tensing slightly. The subtle change in the dog's demeanor alerted Mike immediately. Max had sensed something. "Possible activity," Mike whispered. "Max is alerting." Before anyone could respond, a teenage girl approached Donovan's table. She couldn't have been more than 16, with purple-streaked hair and multiple piercings, dressed in ripped jeans and a baggy hoodie, the very picture of adolescent rebellion. "Mr. D," she said, loud enough for the surveillance microphones to pick up. "My dad sent me to get the presentation materials." She glanced at the messenger bag. "He's stuck in traffic but said you'd know what I'm talking about." Donovan looked startled. This clearly wasn't what he'd been expecting. I don't know your father," he stammered, following the script he'd been given. The girl rolled her eyes dramatically. "Whatever. He said to tell you the falcon flies at midnight or some stupid spy movie thing." She held out her hand. "Can I just get the stuff? I'm missing my friend's birthday party for this." Mike tensed. The authentication phrase hadn't been mentioned in any of the briefings. Either Donovan had withheld information or something had gone very wrong. "Stand by," came Assistant Director Wright's tense voice in Mike's ear. "This doesn't match our intelligence." Donovan hesitated, confusion evident on his face. Then, to everyone's alarm, he reached for the messenger bag. "Your father's name?" he asked weakly. "James Vargas," the girl replied impatiently. "Come on, I'm already late." The name triggered immediate reactions in the command center. "Vargas is on our watch list," Wright's voice reported urgently. "Suspected connection to Colombian suppliers. This is new information." Donovan handed over the messenger bag, his relief at completing the handoff visible even from a distance. The girl casually slung it over her shoulder, thanked him with obvious sarcasm, and turned to leave. "Do we move in?" Chen asked quietly. "Negative," Wright responded after a moment's hesitation. "Follow the girl. She may lead us to Vargas or another connection. All units maintain surveillance but do not approach. Reynolds, you and Max track the package." Mike stood smoothly, giving Max the subtle hand signal that transitioned him from passive observation to active tracking. They began to follow the purple-haired girl, maintaining a careful distance as she weaved through the crowded food court toward the exit. The girl moved with the casual confidence of someone who felt no urgency, occasionally stopping to look at her phone or glance at shop displays. Nothing in her behavior suggested she knew she was carrying a fortune in illegal drugs or that she was under surveillance. As she approached the main exit, Max suddenly tensed again, his nose working rapidly. Mike recognized the change immediately. Max had detected something else, something new. "Max has another alert," Mike reported quietly. "Something's not right." Before anyone could respond, the situation exploded into chaos. A man in a maintenance uniform rushed toward the girl, grabbed her arm, and spoke urgently into her ear. Her eyes widened in shock, and she tried to pull away. "We've been compromised," Wright's voice barked in Mike's ear. "All units move in now." The girl broke free from the man's grip and began running, clutching the messenger bag tightly. The maintenance worker pursued her, shoving tourists aside. Two more men appeared from different directions, converging on the fleeing teenager. Mike sprinted after them, Max matching his pace perfectly. "Police, stop!" he shouted, drawing his concealed weapon. Tourists screamed and scattered as the pursuit continued toward the pier's edge. The girl glanced back, terror evident on her face as she realized she was being chased from multiple directions. In desperation, she veered toward a service corridor. One of the pursuing men reached her just as she turned the corner. There was a brief struggle, a scream, and then the distinctive pop of gunfire. "Shots fired," Mike reported, taking cover behind a concrete planter. "Civilian down." Max crouched beside him, alert but steady, trained to remain calm even in chaotic situations. The service corridor had gone eerily quiet after the gunshot. "Reynolds, what's your position?" Vasquez demanded. "East corridor, near the service entrance," Mike replied. "At least 3 armed suspects. The girl may be injured." "SWAT is 2 minutes out," Wright informed him. "Hold position." But Mike knew that in 2 minutes, the suspects could disappear, along with the drugs and any hope of tracking the network. More importantly, a teenager might be bleeding out in that corridor. "I'm moving in," he decided. "Max, find." The command activated Max's search training. The dog moved forward cautiously, nose to the ground, tracking the scent of the messenger bag he'd been alerted to earlier. Mike followed, weapon ready, using the wall as cover. The corridor was dimly lit and lined with storage rooms. About 30 feet in, they found the girl lying on the ground, clutching her shoulder, blood seeping between her fingers. The messenger bag was gone. "I need medical at my location," Mike reported, holstering his weapon to check the girl's wound. Gunshot to the shoulder, victim conscious. The girl's eyes were wide with fear and pain. "They took it," she gasped. "They said they'd kill my brother if I didn't do this. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know what was in the bag." "It's okay," Mike assured her, applying pressure to the wound. "Help is coming." Max had continued down the corridor, his nose working frantically. Suddenly he stopped, turned back to Mike, and gave a soft whine, his signal that he'd lost the scent. "The package is moving," Mike reported. "Max lost the trail at the end of the corridor. There must be an exit to the street." The girl grabbed Mike's arm with surprising strength. "It wasn't drugs," she whispered. "That's not what they were after." Mike stared at her in confusion. "What?" "The real package," she said, her voice fading as shock set in. "It's inside, sewn into the lining." Before she could finish, the corridor filled with tactical officers and medical personnel. Mike was pulled back as paramedics went to work on the injured girl. Agent Chen appeared at his side, face grim. "Donovan's gone, slipped away during the chaos." Mike processed this new complication as he watched the medical team stabilize the teenager. "The girl said there's something else in the bag," he told Chen. "Something sewn into the lining, just like Donovan's suitcase." Chen's expression darkened. "Then we're not just dealing with a drug shipment." "No," Mike agreed, feeling Max press against his leg supportively. "We're dealing with something much worse." The Chicago field office had transformed into a crisis center. Agents and analysts moved with urgent purpose as information flowed in from multiple sources. At the center of the storm, Assistant Director Wright coordinated the expanding investigation. His tie loosened and sleeves rolled up as the operation stretched into its 14th hour. Mike sat in a small conference room with Agent Chen and Lieutenant Vasquez, reviewing security footage from Navy Pier. Max rested beside his chair, no longer wearing his vest but still on duty, sensitive to the tension in the room. Facial recognition identified two of the men from the pier, Chen reported, bringing up images on her tablet. This one is Luis Cortez, former Special Forces, now works as private security with suspected ties to several cartels. The screen showed a freeze frame of the man in the maintenance uniform who had first approached the girl. And this one, Chen continued, switching to another image, is Anthony Delgado, known enforcer for the Vargas organization. He's the one who shot the girl and took the bag. What about the third man? Mike asked. Still working on it, Chen replied. He managed to avoid most of the cameras. Wright entered the room, his face grave. We need to talk about the girl. He took a seat at the head of the table. Her name is Zoe Vargas. She's 15 years old and the daughter of James Vargas, the man she mentioned to Donovan. She's the daughter of a drug trafficker? Vasquez asked, surprised. It's more complicated than that, Wright said. James Vargas was indeed connected to several Colombian cartels, but for the past 3 years, he's been working as a confidential informant for the DEA's Miami office. This revelation landed like a bombshell. Mike leaned forward. Are you saying the girl was part of a DEA operation? Wright's jaw tightened. No, Miami had no knowledge of her involvement. In fact, they reported Vargas missing 2 days ago. According to what Zoe told the agents at the hospital, men came to their home in Miami, took her younger brother, and forced her to come to Chicago with instructions to retrieve the package from Donovan. They're using her brother as leverage, Mike said, the pieces falling into place. And Vargas? Unknown, Wright admitted. But given that his daughter was used in this way, we have to assume he's either compromised or dead. The room fell silent as they absorbed the implications. Whatever was happening went beyond a standard drug trafficking operation. What about what the girl said about the real package? Mike asked finally. Wright nodded to Chen, who pulled a sealed evidence bag from her briefcase. Inside was a torn piece of black fabric, part of the messenger bag's lining. This was recovered from underneath a bench in the service corridor, Chen explained. Zoe managed to tear it off during the struggle. Our lab is analyzing it now, but preliminary examination shows traces of microfilm embedded in the fabric. Microfilm, Mike echoed. That's rather old school for drug traffickers. Which suggests this isn't just about drugs, Wright said. We think the fentanyl shipment was a cover for something else, possibly intelligence or sensitive information. And Donovan? Vasquez asked. Any sign of him? Wright shook his head. He vanished during the chaos at the pier. Airport and train station surveillance are negative. We've frozen his bank accounts and put out an APB, but so far nothing. Mike glanced down at Max, who gazed back steadily. The dog had been the first to detect something unusual, first at the airport when he alerted on Donovan's bag, and then again at Navy Pier when he sensed something change before the violence erupted. Max knew, Mike said suddenly. At the pier, he alerted again right before everything went sideways. He sensed something beyond the drugs. Wright looked skeptical. Dogs can't detect microfilm, Reynolds. No, but they can detect the chemicals used in its production, Vasquez interjected. Especially a dog with Max's level of training. If the microfilm was recently processed, it would have a distinct chemical signature. That's not all, Mike continued, an idea forming. Max lost the scent at the end of the corridor, but what if we could pick it up again? If that piece of lining has the same chemical signature, he might be able to track it. Wright considered this. It's worth a shot, but what exactly would he be tracking? Whoever took that bag will be trying to extract the microfilm, Mike explained. They'll need specific equipment and chemicals to process it properly. Max might be able to follow that chemical trail to wherever they're doing the work. Chen looked to Wright. Sir, we don't have many other leads at this point. After a moment's consideration, Wright nodded. Set it up, but I want a full tactical team backing you up. If this does lead to our suspects, they've already proven they're willing to use deadly force. As the others left to make preparations, Mike stayed behind with Max, taking the opportunity for a brief moment of calm. The dog sensed his handler's need and pressed against his leg supportively. What have we gotten ourselves into, buddy? Mike murmured, scratching behind Max's ears. His phone vibrated with an incoming message. It was from Laura. Emma asked if you caught the bad guys yet. Told her you and Max are working on it. Stay safe. We love you. Mike smiled faintly, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. He texted back a quick response. Still working. Give Emma a hug from us. Love you too. Before rejoining the others. An hour later, they were back at Navy Pier, the area now secured as a crime scene. Yellow police tape cordoned off the service corridor where Zoe Vargas had been shot, curious onlookers kept at a distance by uniformed officers. Mike knelt beside Max, holding the evidence bag containing the torn lining. This is what we're looking for, buddy, he said softly, allowing Max to sniff the fabric through the bag. Find. Max's demeanor shifted instantly into working mode. He sniffed the sample thoroughly, then began quartering the area where the girl had been found, nose to the ground. Mike followed, giving him space to work. The dog moved methodically down the service corridor to where he had previously lost the scent. This time he continued to the exit door, which opened onto a loading dock. There, Max paused, sniffing the air in different directions before choosing a path that led toward a staff parking area. He's got something, Mike reported into his radio. The surveillance team acknowledged, adjusting their positions to maintain visual contact without crowding the working dog. Max followed the invisible trail across the parking lot to a service road that ran behind the pier. There, he stopped at a drain grate, sniffing intently before looking up at Mike with a soft whine. They might have ditched something here, Mike said, calling over a crime scene technician. The grate was lifted, revealing murky water below, and floating near the surface, a soaked black glove. Bag it, Mike instructed the technician, and check for prints inside. Max had already moved on, tracking west along the service road. The scent led them to a busy intersection where taxis and rideshare vehicles picked up tourists from the pier. They switched to a vehicle here, Mike concluded. Max, find. The dog circled the area, nose working frantically, but the combination of vehicle exhaust, hundreds of pedestrians, and hours of elapsed time had degraded the scent trail beyond recognition. After several minutes of determined effort, Max looked back at Mike and sat down, the signal that he could go no further. Mike patted his partner's head. Good boy, you did great. Agent Chen approached, looking disappointed. End of the line? For the ground trail, yes, Mike agreed. But we've confirmed they exited through the service corridor and likely caught a taxi or rideshare from this spot. That gives us a direction and time frame to work with. Chen nodded, already on her phone requesting traffic camera footage for the intersection. As they waited for transport back to the field office, Mike's radio crackled with an urgent message from Wright. All units, be advised, lab results on the fabric sample show traces of chemically treated microfilm and an unknown substance. CDC has been notified. Consider the package potentially hazardous. Repeat, potential biohazard alert. Mike exchanged an alarmed look with Chen as he absently placed a protective hand on Max's back. The stakes had just risen dramatically, and his faithful partner had been exposed to whatever mysterious substance was hidden in that bag. The race wasn't just to catch criminals anymore. It might be a race against time to prevent something far worse. The CDC's mobile containment unit arrived at the Chicago field office with alarming speed. Men and women in hazmat suits transformed the parking garage into a makeshift decontamination zone, their efficient movements betraying the seriousness of the situation. Mike stood outside the perimeter, watching as specially trained technicians examined Max behind a clear plastic barrier. The Belgian Malinois remained remarkably calm throughout the procedure, responding to hand signals from a veterinary specialist who checked his vitals and took blood samples. Mike, however, was anything but calm. The thought that Max might have been exposed to something dangerous made his stomach twist with anxiety. Agent Chen approached, holding 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Mike. "Any updates?" "Nothing yet," Mike replied, his eyes never leaving Max. "They said the initial examination would take about an hour." "Wright's on a secure call with Washington," Chen informed him. "Whatever was on that microfilm has people at the highest levels concerned." Mike took a sip of the coffee, barely registering its taste. "I don't understand. If this is some kind of biological agent, why transport it as microfilm? Why not just move the actual substance?" "Information," Chen replied simply. "Microfilm could contain formulas, manufacturing processes, genetic sequences, details needed to produce a biological agent rather than the agent itself, making it easier to transport across borders," Mike concluded grimly. "Exactly, and potentially more valuable on the black market. Selling the knowledge of how to make a bioweapon could be more profitable than selling a single batch." The implications were chilling. Before Mike could respond, the veterinary specialist emerged from the containment area, removing her protective hood. Dr. Eleanor Patel was the CDC's leading expert on animal exposure to biological agents, a petite woman whose authority far exceeded her physical stature. "Officer Reynolds," she called, beckoning him over. "Your partner appears to be in excellent health. No signs of respiratory distress, normal temperature, and his blood work shows no abnormalities." Mike felt a wave of relief. So he wasn't exposed? "I didn't say that," Dr. Patel clarified. "He may well have been exposed, but whatever this substance is, it doesn't appear to affect canines the same way it might affect humans. We're still running tests on the samples from the microfilm fragment, but our preliminary analysis suggests it's a compound with highly specific cellular targets." Meaning it was designed to affect particular cells or systems, possibly in a way that makes it harmful to humans but not to other mammals. It's actually quite sophisticated. Chen stepped forward. "Do you have any idea what we're dealing with, Doctor?" Dr. Patel hesitated. "I'm not at liberty to speculate officially until we have conclusive results. But off the record, this has the hallmarks of a tailored pathogen, something engineered for specific purposes rather than naturally occurring." Mike felt a chill despite the warm evening. "Bioterrorism or biological warfare," Dr. Patel replied quietly. "Either way, finding the complete formula and whoever created it is now the highest priority." As if on cue, Assistant Director Wright appeared, his face more serious than ever. "Reynolds, Chen, we need to talk. Now." They followed Wright to a secure conference room where Lieutenant Vasquez was already waiting, along with a man Mike didn't recognize. Tall and lean, with prematurely gray hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to authority, he wore a suit that screamed, "Federal Government." "This is Director Malcolm Hayes, Homeland Security," Wright introduced him. "Director Hayes, these are the officers who intercepted the package at Logan Airport and tracked it to Navy Pier." Hayes nodded curtly. "I've read your reports. Impressive work, especially by your K9 partner." He turned to Wright. "Is the dog clear?" "Dr. Patel says he shows no signs of exposure effects," Wright confirmed. "They're finishing their protocols now, but he should be released within the hour." "Good," Hayes said, activating a tablet that projected images onto the room's main screen. Because we need him back in the field immediately. The screen showed surveillance photos of a warehouse in an industrial area. This facility on the south side was rented 3 weeks ago by a shell company we've now traced back to Luis Cortez, one of the men from the pier incident. Utility records show unusual power consumption patterns consistent with laboratory equipment. Mike studied the images. You think this is where they took the microfilm? It's our best lead, Hayes confirmed. We've had the building under surveillance for the past 4 hours. 3 men entered approximately 2 hours after the Navy Pier incident, including one matching Delgado's description. No one is left. What's the plan? Chen asked. Hayes enlarged an aerial view of the warehouse. Standard containment and seizure operation. Homeland Security Tactical Team will secure the perimeter. Once we've established control, we need your dog to locate any biological materials inside. Dr. Patel says he's uniquely qualified, given his exposure to the original sample and apparent immunity to its effects. Mike frowned. Max isn't trained for biological detection specifically. But he is trained to find what he's been exposed to before, Vasquez pointed out. And he's clearly able to detect this particular substance. Wright turned to Mike. I know this is asking a lot, but time is critical. If these people are attempting to synthesize whatever was on that microfilm, every hour increases the risk of distribution or release. Mike thought about it. Max was the best detection dog in the department, with an uncanny ability to locate targets, even without specific training. If anyone could find these materials, it would be him. But the risk... I need to speak with Dr. Patel first, Mike said firmly. I want her professional assessment of the dangers to Max, not just assurances. Hayes looked impatient, but Wright nodded. That's reasonable. She's waiting outside. Dr. Patel entered, carrying a tablet with Max's test results. Officer Reynolds, your partner has been cleared. There are no signs of any adverse effects from the exposure. And if he's exposed again? Mike pressed. What are the risks of repeated contact with this substance? Based on our analysis, minimal to none for canines, Dr. Patel replied. The compound appears to target human lung tissue specifically. Max's physiology makes him naturally resistant. In fact, that's why he's so valuable for this operation. He can detect the substance without being harmed by it. Mike considered this. And you're certain about this? As certain as I can be without long-term studies, she answered honestly. But I wouldn't recommend his participation if I thought it would endanger him. Mike nodded slowly. All right, we'll do it, but I have conditions. Max and I work as a team. We go in together, and I want Dr. Patel on site during the operation. Hayes started to object, but Wright cut him off. Agreed. This is still primarily a law enforcement operation, not a military one. We do this by the book. The next 2 hours were a blur of preparation. Mike was fitted with specialized protective gear, while Max received a lightweight vest designed to shield him from physical threats without impeding his movement or scent detection abilities. Dr. Patel provided both with tracking devices that would monitor their vital signs throughout the operation. By midnight, they were in position near the warehouse, the area secured by Homeland Security agents in unmarked vehicles. The tactical team's commander, a veteran named Rodriguez, briefed them on the entry plan. We go in fast and quiet, Rodriguez explained. Initial flash bang to disorient, then secure all personnel before they can destroy evidence or trigger any release mechanisms. Once we give the all clear, you and Max enter to locate the target materials. Mike adjusted his protective mask and checked Max's equipment one final time. The dog watched him with complete trust, ready to follow wherever Mike led. That trust was both a comfort and a terrible responsibility. Stay close to me, Mike told Max softly. Find what we're looking for, but nothing heroic, okay? Max pressed his nose briefly against Mike's hand, their private signal of understanding that transcended words. At precisely 12:35 a.m., the operation began. The tactical team breached the warehouse with military precision, the flashbangs creating momentary chaos inside. Mike waited with Max at the designated entry point, listening to the operation unfold through his earpiece. 3 suspects secured, came Rodriguez's voice after what seemed an eternity. Area contained, no visible biological materials. Reynolds, we need your partner in here. Mike took a deep breath and gave Max the command. Find. Together they stepped into the warehouse, ready to face whatever awaited them inside. What they couldn't know was that the true threat wasn't inside the building at all. It was already moving beyond their reach, carried by someone they had overlooked from the beginning. The warehouse interior was a study in contrasts. The main floor resembled any industrial storage facility. Concrete floors, metal shelving, forklifts parked in the corner. But against the far wall stood an incongruous addition, a makeshift laboratory enclosed in clear plastic sheeting, equipped with modern scientific instruments that looked wildly out of place in the otherwise mundane setting. Mike and Max moved carefully through the space, past the 3 handcuffed suspects being guarded by tactical team members. Mike recognized Anthony Delgado from the surveillance photos, his face now sporting a fresh bruise from the takedown. The other 2 men were unfamiliar, likely hired muscle rather than scientists. The lab area is clear, Rodriguez reported, maintaining position near the plastic enclosure. No visible biological materials, but plenty of equipment. Looks like they were just getting set up. Mike nodded, then turned to Max. Find, he commanded again, presenting the evidence bag containing the microfilm fragment. Max sniffed it carefully, then began quartering the warehouse floor, nose working methodically. Dr. Patel monitored from just inside the entrance, tablet in hand, displaying both Mike's and Max's vital signs. Everything looks normal so far, she confirmed. No signs of airborne contaminants. Max worked with impressive focus, ignoring the tactical team and the detained suspects. He investigated the laboratory area thoroughly, but showed no strong alert. Then, moving to a stack of wooden crates near the loading dock, his behavior changed. His body stiffened, tail raised slightly, the subtle changes that Mike recognized as interest, but not a full alert. He's on to something, Mike said quietly, following as Max circled the crates. The dog stopped at a large metal trash bin beside the loading dock door, standing up on his hind legs to sniff the rim before giving Mike a definitive look. Alert on the trash bin, Mike called out. Possible disposal site. Rodriguez approached cautiously. Could be contaminated materials. Let's get the hazmat team to check it. A technician in full protective gear carefully examined the bin, using specialized equipment to peek inside without disturbing the contents. We've got burnt paper residue, he reported. Looks like they destroyed documents recently. The microfilm instructions, Chen suggested, joining Mike near the bin. They probably transferred the information they needed, then destroyed the evidence. Max wasn't satisfied. He continued sniffing around the bin, then moved to a small office area adjoining the main floor. Inside, he immediately alerted on a desk drawer. The hazmat technician carefully opened it, revealing a laptop computer and several USB drives. Digital storage devices, he announced. They may have scanned or photographed the microfilm before destroying it. Bag everything, Hayes ordered from the command post outside. Every piece of equipment, every scrap of paper. I want it all analyzed. As the evidence collection proceeded, Mike praised Max with quiet words and gentle pats. The dog had performed flawlessly, finding what humans would have missed. Yet Mike couldn't shake the feeling that they were still missing something crucial. He's still restless, Mike observed as Max continued to circle the office, nose working. There's something else here. Dr. Patel approached, maintaining a safe distance. Officer Reynolds, Max's heart rate is elevated. Not dangerously so, but noticeable. He's definitely reacting to something in this environment. Mike watched as Max returned repeatedly to the trash bin, then to the desk, as if trying to communicate a connection. "Wait," Mike said suddenly. "The microfilm contained information, right? Instructions or formulas. What if they've already started following those instructions?" Chen caught his meaning immediately. "If they've begun synthesizing whatever bioagent was described, then we need to find out where," Mike finished. He turned to one of the tactical team members. "Has anyone checked their vehicles?" A quick check revealed 3 vehicles parked behind the warehouse: a panel van, a luxury SUV, and a nondescript sedan. Max showed immediate interest in the sedan, alerting strongly on the trunk. The hazmat team approached cautiously, scanning for contaminants before attempting to open it. Finding nothing airborne, they used a specialized tool to pop the trunk without touching it directly. Inside was a single metal briefcase, securely locked. "Possible containment vessel," the hazmat lead announced, proceeding with Level 4 protocols. Using remote manipulation tools, they carefully extracted the briefcase and placed it in a portable containment unit for transport. Max watched intently, staying close to Mike's side. "Good work, Reynolds," Hayes said, approaching in his own protective gear. "If they've already synthesized a sample, that case might hold it. We'll know more once the lab analyzes it." Mike nodded, but something still bothered him. "Sir, these guys don't look like scientists. Delgado is an enforcer, not a biochemist. How could they process the information and create a bioagent so quickly?" Hayes exchanged a look with Wright. "We think they had help," Wright admitted. "Someone with the scientific knowledge to understand and implement the formulas from the microfilm." "Donovan," Mike suggested. "No, his background checks out. He's just an accountant," Chen replied. "But there's someone else who might fit the profile." She handed Mike a tablet showing a DMV photo of a middle-aged man with thinning hair and wire-rimmed glasses. Dr. Alan Mercer, former researcher at the CDC's Biodefense Laboratory, fired 3 years ago for ethical violations. His specialty was respiratory pathogens. "We've had him on a watch list," Hayes added, "but he dropped off the radar 18 months ago. Last known location was Colombia." "Colombia," Mike repeated, "where James Vargas operated as an informant." "Exactly," Wright confirmed. "We think Vargas may have been helping us track Mercer's activities until something went wrong." Mike looked at the 3 detained suspects. "None of these men is Mercer." "No," Hayes agreed grimly, "and there's no sign of him here, which means he's still out there," Mike finished, "possibly with samples of whatever they were creating." The implications hung heavy in the air. If a rogue scientist with bioweapons expertise was loose with a potentially deadly pathogen, the threat level had just increased exponentially. As if sensing the gravity of the situation, Max pressed against Mike's leg, a gesture of solidarity that had become their private language over years of partnership. "We need to question the suspects," Wright decided. "Delgado is our best bet. He's the highest ranking of the 3. Maybe we can get him to flip on Mercer." Mike nodded, but his attention was drawn to Max, who had begun to exhibit unusual behavior, restless movement, occasional sneezing, and pawing at his muzzle. "Something's wrong with Max," Mike said, concern evident in his voice. Dr. Patel immediately checked her monitoring tablet. "His vitals are still stable, but there's definitely a stress response happening. It could be fatigue or..." She paused, studying the readings more closely. "Wait, this pattern is interesting. It's similar to how detection dogs react when a scent they're tracking suddenly disappears or changes." Mike knelt beside his partner. "What is it, boy? What are you trying to tell me?" Max whined softly, then turned toward the laboratory area again, his body language communicating urgency. "I think he's telling us we missed something," Mike said, rising to his feet. "Permission to do another sweep with Max, focusing on the lab area?" Hayes looked skeptical, but nodded. Make it quick. We need to transport the suspects and evidence soon. Mike led Max back to the plastic-enclosed laboratory. This time, instead of searching broadly, he instructed Max to focus specifically. Find Mercer. The command wasn't one they had trained for specifically, but Max understood the concept of finding people by their scent. He moved more deliberately now, sniffing each piece of equipment, each surface where someone might have left a trace. At a computer workstation, Max gave a definitive alert, sitting down and looking up at Mike with certainty. He's found something, Mike called out. Mercer was here at this workstation. The hazmat team examined the area carefully, finding fingerprints on the keyboard and mouse. More significantly, they discovered a small notebook hidden beneath the computer tower, filled with handwritten notes in a cramped, precise script. This could be Mercer's research journal, Chen said, examining the notebook through the plastic evidence bag. If so, it might tell us exactly what they were creating and... She stopped abruptly, her expression changing as she flipped to the final page. Mike, look at this. The last entry was dated that very day, the handwriting rushed but legible. Formula complete, initial synthesis successful. Moving to phase 2 tonight, target Palmer House Hotel. Mike felt his blood run cold. The Palmer House, that's where Donovan was staying. Wright was already on his radio. I need immediate evacuation and containment protocols at the Palmer House Hotel. Possible bioagent release imminent. All available units respond. As the tactical team mobilized with renewed urgency, Mike turned to Max, whose earlier distress now made perfect sense. The dog hadn't been tracking just a scent. He'd been trying to warn them that the real danger lay elsewhere. Good boy, Mike whispered, the inadequacy of the words painful in his throat. You were right all along. Together they rushed toward the exit, knowing that the race against time had suddenly become much more desperate, and that hundreds of innocent lives now hung in the balance. The Palmer House Hotel stood as an elegant sentinel in Chicago's downtown, its historic facade illuminated against the night sky. Now its grandeur had been transformed into something more ominous as emergency vehicles surrounded the building, their lights painting the ornate exterior in strobing red and blue. Hotel guests in various states of dress huddled on the sidewalk, confusion and concern etched on their faces as police officers and emergency personnel established a perimeter. Mike and Max arrived with Agent Chen just as the CDC's emergency response team was setting up a command center in a nearby office building. Dr. Patel had been diverted directly to the hotel to coordinate the medical response, while Director Hayes and Assistant Director Wright managed the overall operation from a mobile command unit. What's the situation? Mike asked as he approached Wright, Max trotting faithfully at his side. The dog remained alert despite the late hour and chaotic circumstances, sensing the urgency in his handler's movements. Hotel security found something suspicious in the ventilation system for the main ballroom, Wright replied grimly. Some kind of dispersal device with a timer. They've isolated that section of the building, but we don't know if it's the only one. Was it activated? Chen asked. No, we got lucky. The timer was set for 7 a.m. There's a financial services conference scheduled in the ballroom tomorrow morning. Over 300 attendees expected. Mike felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. A mass casualty event. Exactly, Hayes confirmed, joining them from the command vehicle. And given the target, possibly designed to create economic panic as well. Many of the attendees are high-level executives from major financial institutions. What about Mercer? Mike asked. Any sign of him? Hayes shook his head. Hotel security footage shows someone matching his description entering the building around 6 p.m., wearing hotel maintenance overalls. He accessed multiple mechanical areas before leaving approximately 2 hours later. We've lost his trail since then. Mike looked down at Max, who stood attentively beside him. "Maybe not completely lost," he suggested. Max tracked Mercer's scent at the warehouse. If we can get him a proper scent article, he might be able to locate other devices in the hotel, or even track where Mercer went afterward. Hayes considered this. The device they found hasn't been touched yet. It's being held for the bomb squad to examine, but it likely has Mercer's prints and DNA all over it. "That's all Max needs," Mike assured him. "Just a chance to catch the scent." Wright nodded his approval. "Do it. We can't risk missing any additional devices." After a brief consultation with the bomb squad commander, arrangements were made for Max to sniff the dispersal device from a safe distance. The device itself was surprisingly simple, a metal canister attached to a small electronic timer and connected to the ventilation duct. What made it deadly was its contents, still sealed inside. Max approached carefully, responding to Mike's subtle hand signals. He sniffed the exterior of the device without touching it, committing the complex scent signature to memory. When Mike gave the command, "Find more," Max understood the assignment perfectly. For the next 2 hours, Mike and Max methodically searched the hotel's utility areas, mechanical rooms, and ventilation access points. The hotel's elaborate architecture, with additions and renovations spanning more than a century, made the search particularly challenging. Yet Max worked with unflagging determination, his training and bond with Mike allowing them to communicate with minimal words. In a seldom-used maintenance corridor connecting the hotel's newer wing to the historic main building, Max alerted on an electrical panel. When carefully opened by the bomb squad, they discovered a second dispersal device, this one set for 7:30 a.m., apparently a backup in case the first was discovered. "Two down," Wright said when they reported the find, "but we can't be sure that's all of them. Keep searching." A third device was found near the hotel's water system, and a fourth in the air handling equipment for the executive suites on the top floor. Each discovery reinforced the methodical, calculated nature of the plot, and the catastrophic scale of what might have happened if Max hadn't detected Donovan's bag at Logan Airport. As they completed their sweep of the building, Mike noticed Max's energy beginning to flag. The dog had been working almost continuously for nearly 24 hours, pushing the limits of even his exceptional stamina. "We need to take a break," Mike told Chen when they regrouped in the lobby. "Max needs rest, water, and food." Chen nodded her understanding. "The CDC team has cleared a room for exactly that purpose. Dr. Patel wants to check both of you anyway." They followed her to a small conference room that had been repurposed as a rest area and medical checkpoint. Dr. Patel was waiting, along with a veterinary technician, who immediately began attending to Max, checking his vitals and offering fresh water. "Both of you have had significant exposure time in contaminated areas," Dr. Patel explained, running a handheld scanner over Mike's protective suit. "While the devices were sealed, we can't rule out trace contamination on surfaces Mercer touched." "Are we at risk?" Mike asked, watching as Max gratefully drank water from a bowl. "Minimal risk," Dr. Patel assured him. "Your protective gear has done its job and Max continues to show no vulnerability to the compound. But I'd like to run some additional tests just to be safe." While the medical team worked, Wright entered with a tablet displaying new information. "We've identified the compound from the first device," he announced. "It's a synthetic pathogen designed to target the respiratory system, essentially a weaponized form of pneumonia that would be nearly impossible to treat with existing antibiotics." "How bad would it have been?" Mike asked quietly. Wright's expression was grim. "If all 4 devices had activated as planned, CDC estimates 80 to 90% fatality rate among those exposed, with potential for secondary spread before symptoms were recognized. We could have been looking at hundreds of deaths, possibly thousands if it spread through the city." The weight of what they had prevented settled over the room. Max, sensing the shift in mood, pressed against Mike's leg supportively. "What about Mercer?" Chen asked. "Any progress tracking him?" "Some," Wright replied. "After reviewing more security footage, we've determined he left the hotel in a taxi. Chicago PD tracked the taxi to Union Station. He purchased a ticket for the 9:30 p.m. train to Detroit, but we don't know if he actually boarded. Facial recognition is scanning station cameras now." Mike looked down at Max, who had finished his water and was looking up attentively despite his obvious fatigue. "Max could track him at the station," he suggested, "if we hurry." Dr. Patel frowned. "Officer Reynolds, both you and Max need rest. You've been going non-stop since yesterday morning." "There's no time," Mike insisted. "If Mercer reaches Detroit, he could disappear across the Canadian border, or worse, he might have additional bioagents with him." Wright considered this, then nodded. "I'll authorize it, but on one condition: you take a full tactical team with you, and you follow Dr. Patel's medical protocols exactly." "Understood," Mike agreed. 20 minutes later, they were at Chicago's Union Station, the Grand Beaux-Arts building eerily quiet in the pre-dawn hours. A skeleton staff of security personnel and overnight cleaners moved through the vast main hall, unaware of the deadly game of cat and mouse playing out in their midst. Max, having rested briefly and consumed a high-energy meal prepared by the veterinary team, was back on duty. Mike had been given a fresh protective suit, though less conspicuous than the full hazmat gear from earlier. A tactical team spread throughout the station, maintaining communication through encrypted earpieces. According to the security footage, Mercer was last seen heading toward Platform 3. Chen informed them as they entered the main concourse. The Detroit train departed from there at 9:30 p.m. Mike knelt beside Max, presenting him with a sample taken from the electrical panel where the second device had been found, a piece of tape with Mercer's fingerprints preserved on its adhesive side. "Find him, Max," he commanded softly. Max sniffed the sample intently, then raised his head, nose working the air currents flowing through the station. After a moment of consideration, he moved purposefully toward Platform 3, Mike following closely behind. The platform was empty now, the train to Detroit long departed. Max worked methodically along its length, occasionally pausing to test the air before continuing. At the far end, he suddenly veered toward a bank of lockers. "He's got something," Mike reported into his radio. "Southeastern corner, near the storage lockers." Max circled the lockers, then sat firmly in front of locker number 247, his alert posture unmistakable. The tactical team approached cautiously, scanning the area for explosives or other threats before attempting to open the locker. Finding it locked, they brought in specialized equipment to examine its contents without triggering any potential booby traps. "We've got a heat signature," the team leader reported. "Something inside is maintaining a temperature of approximately 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit." Mike felt his pulse quicken. "That's body temperature." "Stand back," the team leader ordered. With precise movements, they breached the locker door. Inside was a small incubator, the kind used for transporting biological samples. And attached to its exterior was a phone with a timer counting down. 04217, 04216, 04215. "It's another device," Chen said, her voice tight, "set to activate in less than 43 minutes. As the bomb squad rushed to secure the new threat, Mike knelt beside Max, giving the praise he so richly deserved. "Good boy," he whispered, stroking the dog's head. "You just saved more lives than we'll ever know." Max leaned into his touch, tired but still alert, still ready to continue the hunt. Because somewhere out there, Dr. Alan Mercer remained at large, and as long as he was free, the danger was far from over. Dawn broke over Chicago, painting the city skyline in hues of gold and amber. For most residents, it was the beginning of an ordinary day. Few knew how close they had come to catastrophe, or that the danger still lurked in their midst. In a secured conference room at FBI headquarters, Mike sat beside Max, who rested on a specially provided mat, but remained alert, his eyes tracking every movement in the room. The incubator found at Union Station had contained 3 sealed vials of the bioagent, enough to contaminate a mid-sized office building. The timer had been connected to a release mechanism that would have activated at precisely 6:30 a.m., the height of the morning commute at the busy transportation hub. Director Hayes paced at the front of the room, his usual composure showing cracks after nearly 30 hours without sleep. "We've confirmed Mercer wasn't on the Detroit train," he announced to the assembled team. "It was a diversion. He purchased the ticket, placed the device in the locker, then exited the station through a service entrance not covered by security cameras." "Do we have any leads on his current location?" Wright asked, his own exhaustion evident in the hoarseness of his voice. "Nothing concrete," Chen replied, scrolling through updates on her tablet. "We've distributed his photo to all transportation hubs, hotels, and rental car agencies within a 300-mile radius. Border Patrol and Coast Guard are on high alert, but so far nothing." Mike studied the timeline they had constructed on a digital whiteboard. "We're missing something," he said, thinking aloud. Mercer's actions show careful planning, specific targets. The Palmer House devices were aimed at financial leaders. The station device would have hit commuters. There's a pattern here. Dr. Patel, who had joined them to monitor the medical aspects of the investigation, looked up from her notes. "I've been analyzing the bioagent, and there's something unusual about its design. It's engineered to become inert after approximately 48 hours of exposure to normal atmospheric conditions." "A self-destruct mechanism?" Wright asked. "In a way," Dr. Patel confirmed. "It means the agent wouldn't create a sustained outbreak, just a devastating initial wave of infections. It's almost as if it was designed to hit specific targets, then disappear before it could be properly studied," Mike finished, "which supports the theory that these are targeted attacks, not general terrorism." Hayes stopped pacing. "But who's the target? What's the endgame?" Before anyone could respond, Lieutenant Vasquez burst into the room, her expression urgent. "We've got a situation at Lakeside Medical Research Center," she announced. "Security reported a break-in at their biocontainment facility 30 minutes ago. The suspect matches Mercer's description." The room erupted into activity. Lakeside was one of the Midwest's premier medical research institutions, with laboratories studying everything from cancer treatments to infectious diseases. "What's at this facility?" Hayes demanded. "Level 4 biocontainment," Vasquez replied grimly. "They work with some of the most dangerous pathogens known to medicine." Mike felt Max press against his leg, the dog sensing his handler's sudden tension. "He's looking for something to combine with his bioagent," Mike suggested. "A way to make it more lethal, or defeat the self-destruct mechanism Dr. Patel identified." "Or he's looking for distribution equipment," Chen added. "That facility would have specialized aerosolization technology." Hayes was already issuing orders. "Full tactical response. I want that building surrounded. No one enters or leaves until we have Mercer in custody." "Sir," Mike interjected, "Max and I should be part of the entry team. He's the only one who can track Mercer by scent inside the building, especially if Mercer is hiding." Hayes hesitated, glancing at Dr. Patel. "Doctor, is it safe for them to continue? They've been in the field continuously for over 30 hours." Dr. Patel looked torn between medical caution and operational necessity. "Physiologically, they're both showing signs of stress and fatigue. Under normal circumstances, I'd recommend at least 8 hours of rest before further deployment." She paused, then added reluctantly, "But these aren't normal circumstances. If Officer Reynolds feels he and Max can continue safely, I won't oppose it." All eyes turned to Mike. He looked down at Max, who met his gaze with unwavering trust. Despite the exhaustion evident in the droop of his ears and the slower wag of his tail, the Belgian Malinois still radiated determination. "We can do this," Mike decided. "But we'll need backup close by. Max is tired, which means his responses might be slower than usual." "Understood," Hayes nodded. "You'll have full tactical support. Gear up and move out in 5 minutes." As the room cleared, Mike knelt beside Max, checking him over one more time. "Just a little longer, buddy," he murmured, straightening the dog's specialized vest. "Then we'll go home, I promise." His phone vibrated with an incoming message. It was from Laura, with a photo attached. Emma at her bedroom window, clearly just waking up, holding a hand-drawn sign that read, "Come home soon, Daddy and Max," with wobbly letters and a child's drawing of a man and dog. Mike felt his throat tighten. He texted back quickly, "One more job, then we're coming home. Love you both." Lakeside Medical Research Center was a modern complex of glass and steel situated near the University District. By the time Mike arrived with Max and the tactical team, local police had established a perimeter, evacuating neighboring buildings as a precaution. The facility's own security personnel provided blueprints and access codes to the response team, confirming that approximately 30 researchers and staff remained trapped inside. Mercer accessed the building using stolen credentials, the security director explained, pointing to surveillance footage on a laptop. He entered through the loading dock at 5:47 a.m., then disabled several security cameras on the 3rd floor. That's where the high-containment laboratories are located. "Has he made any demands?" Wright asked. "None. He triggered alarms when he forced entry to Lab 342, but hasn't communicated with security or anyone else that we know of." Hayes organized the tactical teams, assigning sectors and entry points. "Reynolds, you and Max will follow the 2nd entry team. Your sole focus is locating Mercer. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary." Mike nodded, adjusting his protective gear and checking Max's equipment one final time. The dog had been given another short rest and energy-rich snack, but Mike could see the fatigue in his movements. Still, Max's training held firm. When Mike gave the command to prepare for work, the Belgian Malinois shifted into operational mode, focused and ready, despite his exhaustion. At precisely 7:15 a.m., the operation began. Tactical teams entered the building simultaneously through multiple access points, moving with disciplined precision through the quiet corridors. Mike and Max followed the 2nd team, maintaining radio silence except for essential communications. The 3rd floor was eerily quiet, the normally busy research spaces evacuated after the security breach. Laboratory doors stood closed, red warning lights indicating the automated lockdown protocols had engaged. Only Lab 342 showed signs of disturbance, its security panel disabled, door slightly ajar. The tactical team took positions on either side of the doorway, while Mike prepared Max with hand signals. The dog understood they were searching for the same scent he had tracked at the warehouse and train station, his nose already working the air currents flowing from the partially open door. "Ready to breach," the team leader whispered into his radio. "Execute," came Hayes' command from the mobile command center outside. The door swung open, tactical officers sweeping in with weapons raised, only to find the laboratory empty of human presence. Equipment had been disturbed, cabinet doors left open, and a centrifuge was still running. But Mercer himself was gone. "Clear," the team leader reported. "Subject is not in the target location." Mike released Max with the command to search. The dog moved methodically through the space, nose working continuously. At a workstation near the back of the lab, Max gave a subtle alert, not his full indication, but enough to tell Mike that Mercer had been there recently. "He was here," Mike confirmed. "Max is picking up his scent, but it's not fresh. I'd estimate at least 30 minutes old." "Check the adjoining rooms," Hayes ordered through the radio. The team expanded their search to neighboring laboratories and offices. In a small conference room connected to Lab 342, they found signs of recent occupation: an empty coffee cup, a chair pulled away from the table, and most concerning, a laptop connected to the facility's network. "We need cyber team in here now," the tactical leader radioed. "Possible data breach in progress." Max continued working, following Mercer's scent trail through a maze of corridors, leading them steadily toward the building's east wing. The trail grew stronger, more recent. Max's pace quickened despite his fatigue, his body language telling Mike they were getting close. At an emergency stairwell, Max stopped, looking up at his handler with certainty. Mike understood immediately. "He's using the stairs," Mike reported quietly. "Moving down, based on Max's behavior." They descended cautiously, the tactical team maintaining protective positions around Mike and Max. On the ground floor, Max led them toward a service corridor that, according to the building plans, connected to an underground parking area. "He's heading for the parking garage," Mike realized. "He's trying to escape." As they approached the garage access door, Max suddenly froze, hackles rising. A low growl rumbled in his chest, a warning Mike had rarely heard from his normally composed partner. "Hold position," Mike whispered urgently. "Max is alerting to danger." The tactical team stopped instantly, trusting the dog's instincts. In the tense silence that followed, they heard it, a faint, rhythmic beeping coming from the other side of the door. "Possible explosive device," the team leader whispered. "Fall back, call EOD." But Max wasn't retreating. Instead, he began pawing gently at the floor near the door, his behavior communicating something specific to Mike, who had learned to read his partner's every signal. "Wait," Mike said softly. "It's not an explosive. Max is indicating a biological threat. There's something on the other side of that door, and Mercer is waiting for us to open it." The tactical team retreated several yards down the corridor, establishing a perimeter while maintaining visual contact with the door. Mike stayed with Max, both protected behind a concrete pillar as they awaited the arrival of the EOD unit and hazmat specialists. "What exactly did Max indicate?" Hayes asked over the radio from the command center. "It's similar to his alert at the warehouse and train station," Mike explained, watching as Max maintained his focus on the door despite his evident fatigue. "But with defensive behavior added, he senses danger, not just the presence of the bioagent. Mercer could have rigged a dispersal device as a booby trap," Dr. Patel suggested, her voice tense. "If anyone opens that door without proper protection." The implications didn't need to be stated. Everyone remembered the countdown timer at Union Station, the carefully placed devices at the Palmer house. Mercer was methodical, calculating, and now cornered. "He's buying time," Mike realized suddenly. "Every minute we wait at this door gives him more opportunity to escape through another exit." Wright's voice came through the radio. "Building schematics show the parking garage has 3 additional exits beyond this one. We have teams covering all of them." "That's what he wants us to think," Mike insisted. "Max isn't just alerting to the bioagent. He's telling us Mercer is still close by. I've worked with this dog for 3 years. I know what he's trying to communicate." There was a moment of silence as Hayes considered the options. "What do you suggest, Reynolds?" Mike looked down at Max, whose attention had shifted slightly, now dividing his focus between the door and a ventilation grate in the floor nearby. Understanding dawned on Mike's face. "The maintenance tunnels," he said urgently. "Check the building plans for access points to underground service corridors. I think Mercer set up the door as a diversion while he escapes through the building's infrastructure." Within minutes, building engineers had provided updated schematics showing an extensive network of utility tunnels beneath the research center, a common feature in large institutional buildings, allowing maintenance crews to access pipes, wiring, and HVAC systems without disturbing the spaces above. There's an access point in the parking garage, Wright confirmed, and the tunnels connect to multiple buildings in the research complex. That's his escape route, Mike said with certainty. We need to split our resources, maintain containment on this door while sending teams into the tunnel system. Hayes made the decision quickly. Tactical Team Alpha will remain at the current position. Bravo and Charlie teams will access the tunnels from secure entry points. Reynolds, can Max track in the tunnel environment? Mike considered the question seriously. The tunnels would present challenges: confined spaces, poor air circulation, multiple scent trails from maintenance workers, and Max was approaching the limits of his endurance after more than 30 hours on duty. Yes, Mike answered finally, meeting Max's steady gaze. But we'll need to move carefully. The air handling in those tunnels will be different from the building above. 10 minutes later, Mike and Max entered the tunnel system through a secure access point in an adjacent building, accompanied by a 6-person tactical team and Dr. Patel, who insisted on monitoring Max's condition personally. The tunnels were utilitarian concrete passages, dimly lit by widely spaced emergency fixtures, pipes, and conduits running along the ceilings. We're approximately 200 yards from the garage access point, the team leader reported. Moving southeast along primary tunnel B7. Mike released Max from his close heel position with the command to search. The dog moved forward cautiously, nose working continuously as he sorted through the complex scent environment. Despite his exhaustion, Max's training held firm, his movements methodical, his focus unwavering. For 15 minutes, they followed Max's lead through the tunnel network, each intersection requiring careful investigation as the dog determined which path carried Mercer's scent. The air grew warmer and more stagnant as they moved deeper into the system, the low ceiling and narrow passages creating a sense of claustrophobia. Reynolds, what's your status? Hayes checked in through the radio. Still tracking, Mike replied quietly. Max is working well, but the scent is getting more complex. I think Mercer might be trying to confuse the trail. External teams report no sign of him exiting the tunnel network, Wright updated them. He's still down there somewhere. Max suddenly stopped at an intersection, his behavior changing. Instead of following one path decisively, he circled the area, nose working frantically as he checked all 3 connecting tunnels. Then, to Mike's surprise, the dog looked upward. Hold position, Mike instructed the team. Following Max's gaze, he directed his flashlight toward the ceiling, revealing an access hatch to a utility space above. Possible vertical movement, Mike reported. There's a maintenance hatch here. The tactical team leader approached, examining the hatch with specialized equipment. It's been opened recently, he confirmed. The dust pattern is disturbed. Max whined softly, his attention fixed on the hatch. Mike understood. Mercer had gone up, not forward. With careful coordination, the tactical team prepared to breach the overhead space. As they worked, Dr. Patel moved closer to Mike and Max, her expression concerned as she checked the monitoring device attached to Max's vest. His core temperature is elevated and his heart rate isn't recovering between exertions, she whispered to Mike. He's pushing his physiological limits. Mike nodded, stroking Max's head gently. Just a little longer, buddy, he murmured. We're close now. The hatch opened to reveal a cramped utility room filled with electrical equipment, junction boxes, transformers, and control panels for the research center's power distribution system. A second door on the far wall stood slightly ajar. Max entered first once the tactical team declared the room secure, his renewed energy telling Mike they were very close to their quarry. The open door led to a narrow corridor that served as a maintenance access for the building's electrical infrastructure. 20 yards down this corridor, Max stopped abruptly, his body language shifting to alert mode, the posture Mike had seen hundreds of times when the dog located a target. He was sitting, eyes fixed on a metal door marked High voltage, authorized personnel only. "He's in there," Mike said quietly into his radio. The tactical team moved into position as Mike called Max back to his side, unwilling to risk his partner further. They had found Mercer. Now it was time for the tactical specialists to do their job. "Dr. Alan Mercer," the team leader called out. "This is the FBI. You are surrounded. Come out with your hands visible." Silence answered them. "We know you're in there, Dr. Mercer," the leader continued. "There is no escape route. Surrender peacefully and you will not be harmed." After a tense moment, a voice replied from within the room, tired, resigned, yet still carrying an edge of intellectual arrogance. "The dog found me, didn't he? Remarkable animals. I calculated the ventilation patterns specifically to disperse my scent." "Come out now, Dr. Mercer," the leader repeated, ignoring the comment. "I'm unarmed," Mercer responded. "And contrary to what you might believe, I'm not carrying any biological agents on my person. That would be unnecessarily risky." The door opened slowly, revealing a middle-aged man with thinning hair and wire-rimmed glasses, hands raised above his head. He looked exhausted but composed, his eyes immediately finding Max and studying him with scientific curiosity. "Belgian Malinois," he observed as tactical team members secured him. "Extraordinary olfactory capabilities. I should have accounted for that variable more thoroughly." As they led Mercer away, Mike knelt beside Max, finally allowing his own exhaustion to show as he embraced his partner. "Good boy," he whispered, the simple phrase carrying the weight of all they had accomplished together. "The best boy." Max leaned into his handler's embrace, his mission complete, his loyalty and skill having saved countless lives over the past 36 hours. 3 days later, Mike stood in his backyard, watching as Emma threw a tennis ball for Max, who chased it with the unbridled joy of a dog who knew the difference between work and play. The Belgian Malinois had recovered quickly from his ordeal, a full veterinary examination showing no lasting effects from his extended duty or exposure to the crime scenes. Laura approached, handing Mike a cold drink. "The news said they found 6 more vials of that bioagent in Mercer's apartment," she said quietly, making sure Emma couldn't hear. "Enough to have infected thousands." Mike nodded, taking a sip. "And the intelligence community is still unraveling his connections. Turns out he was selling bioweapon designs to multiple buyers, playing them against each other for higher payouts." "And Donovan, the man from the airport?" "They found him hiding in a motel outside Indianapolis. He claims he didn't know what was in the microfilm, just that he was paid to transport it. The prosecutors don't believe him." Laura watched as Max returned with the ball, dropping it at Emma's feet and wagging his tail enthusiastically. "It's hard to believe that just a few days ago he was tracking a bioterrorist through underground tunnels." Mike smiled, seeing only his daughter's joy and his dog's contentment in the moment. "That's what makes him special. He can be whatever we need him to be, a relentless working dog on duty and a loving family pet at home." As if hearing his name, Max looked over, his eyes meeting Mike's across the yard. In that brief connection, Mike felt the depth of their partnership, a bond forged through training, strengthened by trust, and now tested in the crucible of one of the most dangerous cases of their careers. "You know," Laura said, leaning against her husband's shoulder, "when you first brought him home, I worried he'd always be a police dog first and a pet second. And now?" She smiled, watching as Max gently took the ball from Emma's hand, careful not to use his teeth. "Now I think he's exactly where he belongs, both on duty and off." Mike couldn't disagree. From a routine patrol at Logan Airport to the heart-stopping pursuit through Chicago, Max had demonstrated the extraordinary capabilities that made working dogs invaluable to law enforcement. But here, in this backyard with the people who loved him, he showed something equally important: the capacity to leave the work behind and simply be a dog, beloved by his family. "Dad, Max wants you to throw the ball," Emma called, the dog already trotting toward Mike with expectant eyes. Mike set down his drink and accepted the slobbery tennis ball, throwing it with enough arc to give Max a good run. As the Belgian Malinois raced across the yard, his strong legs carrying him with effortless grace, Mike felt a profound gratitude for this remarkable animal who had become so much more than a partner, a hero whose keen senses and unwavering courage had saved countless lives, including perhaps those of his own family. Some partnerships were formed by chance, others by design. But the bond between Mike and Max had been forged by something deeper, a mutual respect and trust that transcended words, a connection that made them stronger together than either could be alone. It was this bond that had turned a routine airport patrol into the first step of an extraordinary journey, and it was this bond that would carry them forward to whatever challenges awaited in the future.